Harvest Moon DS. And I made sure it was the version of the game that wasn't insanely buggy for my first playthrough. But for the ROM hack, you can't do that. This game's gameplay is good. It's just amazing how many things it gets wrong. Whenever you start up the game, until you find out that you can just tap the bottom screen at any time to skip the scene, you think you have to wait through a small cutscene on the title screen where you see a horizontal, narrow slits where the faces of the harvest sprites are and it shows them glaring at each other. This game does the kind of thing way too often and I never take it seriously. I took until the first winter to get the idea to tap the screen to get through the title screen faster. Because if pressing buttons didn't work, why would tapping? You're forced to use the touch screen to choose Continue and New Game. Why is the text speed so slow? Why can't I increase the speed any more than barely by holding A? This is the most common, exhausting problem with the game. You're forced to use the touch screen just to name anything. To be fair, it is faster, but it's intrusive to force it on you. I feel better about choosing to do it. And the game starts with the harvest gods telling you to name a whole bunch of things. It'd actually be better if it was the mayor asking you this, so that it happened in universe. On my first playthrough, the touchscreen was so unresponsive when I tried to hit the E keys. This might be because I was using my nail, but the things you're expected to tap on the touchscreen are always smaller than your finger, so you can't simply tap something and expect that to work. First playthrough I had to use all caps for naming my dog, because no matter what, the lowercase e just wouldn't respond. I couldn't name my character Scourge because the game has a limit on the amount of letters you can have for a name, and that limit's way smaller this time. And for some ungodly reason you can even pause in the naming screen. So because I was trying to name my character and filled up all the bars, I pressed start, naturally assuming that would let me confirm that I wanted that name. Instead it dimmed the screen, and at the time I had no idea that meant the game was paused. Because this game is infamously glitchy. Why would I think you could pause at a point where the time wouldn't even be passing? So I shut the game off because I thought the game had frozen. Why didn't it just say pause and use a stereotypical pausing sound? You start out with the cat. Instead of the game spending its intro time showing my character going to the farm, it wastes my time showing me the harvest gods and a pretty blonde lady with a stereotypical witch's costume but no hat glaring at each other, and some explosion thing shows up in between them. This is supposed to impress the audience at the start of a DS game? I do love that the Friends of Mineral Town sprites and art styles used for this game. What is the point of showing these two characters fighting if the cutscene presentation is so poor? I'm just wondering why they're putting an explosion or whatever between them and just staring at it. If they don't like each other, why aren't they slapping each other? The whole time I was wondering why they didn't like each other. Eventually, we see the witch princess, who sadly doesn't have a tiara to reflect that, complain that the harvest gods is annoying because she's always teleporting somewhere and saying ta-da. Then the harvest goddess shows up with no explanation, making the story forced. She doesn't even show up in a spring. There's no reason she'd be here. Somehow I'm expected to believe that a lifelong witch can cast a spell to make the harvest gods get sent into another world by accident. And then she immediately wants her back because she says her life will be boring without her. I was like, why don't you get a hobby? Why have one hobby where your life is always stressful dealing with an enemy? Why didn't either of them kill each other by now? Why did this take so long to happen? Why did this only happen once? It would actually make a lot more sense if she really did want her to disappear forever. Again, how do you do that by accident? Wouldn't you just make her unable to speak? Like Kyria? And then I'm told that the harvest sprites can't go into the world beyond the spring that the harvest goddess goes into. So they need the witch princess to send the sprites away with a spell to go rescue her. Why does she have so much faith in these little elves to do so? How'd she be wrong? Why doesn't she instantly bring her back with magic? This story's an insult to my intelligence. And immediately she brings my character to the harvest sprite house. And my time is wasted with a few of the harvest sprites blabbing my ears off, with one of them saying he exhausted his energy and passed out. And there's no elaboration on what happened in there and how the hell he failed. How is the weather reporter a harvest sprite? Wouldn't people be reacting to that? Why can't you buy a TV that shows you real channels instead of the harvest sprite channels? The Witch Princess casually told me that I have to work hard to get the sprites back by completing the game's achievements list. That makes no sense at all. But they are magical immortal harvest sprites, so they're basically gods. I only don't call them gods because they're not tall. So they're the god of whatever brought them back. The problem is that a lot of the things that are unlocked at the start of most of these games, like being able to buy the level 2 house, are locked behind doing unintuitive things to unlock the sprites. The toolbox is one of the many things on the TV shopping channel you can watch on what must be a mini TV of your character that you never see. Then the mayor shows up at my door, and reveals that he lost the game of rock, paper, scissors, and so he's the one who's going to be picking up what I shipped every day. Even though you'd think the mayor would just hire someone to do it. I love that I can skip his whole scene. And then after he says that this rundown farm full of branches, rocks, and stumps is inferior to the Mineral Town farm, go figure, my character wastes a huge amount of my time trying to attack him with every tool he has. When this is a farm he just met that he isn't attached to yet, so you'd think he would just agree with them. I wrote the script on the original version of the game, and it's going to be a lot easier to not correct the script and call her she. Somehow the mayor doesn't care or think to call police, and even makes a literal reference to more Friends of Mineral Town. So that game's the canon one. But that was the girl version that came out later. I hate fourth wall breaking. And there's so many plot holes, it's like every plot development. That's bad Sonic story territory. And when my dog suddenly ambushed the mayor, well, I considered choosing Don't Help because he was being so annoying. I vaguely remembered that choosing that caused a game over, implying that the dog murdered the mayor in a children's game. So I reluctantly chose Help. They shouldn't give you a dialogue tree as if you have a choice when you don't. It just wastes your time. You could have thought the cutscene would go differently. It was annoying that he smugly dodged every single one of my character's attacks that unrelatably happened on their own without me getting to control him, and wasted my time. It clearly hit him. More Friends of Mineral Town let you actually hit him. No impact, though. There was no excuse for the flash of light there. Your farm doesn't have any barn or chicken coop at first, which is somehow mistranslated as bird shed and animal shed. And you don't even have a silo, which is meant to hold fodder so it's not in your bag. This gives the game a noticeably slow beginning, forcing you to take even longer to get to the point you would normally start at. My cat does literally nothing. The dog has to be trained into chasing the wild dog by throwing a ball with it. And it would take forever to raise the dog bone meter up, so you would never want to do it. I like that this game lampshades that, as usual, the dog isn't in the doghouse. It's a good thing the game's controls are in the bookshelf in your house. But you can't hold a direction and buttons to keep going through your tools or items to get what you want anymore. And there's no tool shed. But you have a huge amount of tools in your bag. So it would take forever to get what you want by just using R and Y. Why the flying fuck didn't they keep the controls of Friends of Mineral Town instead of changing B to Y for no reason? I tried the old combo and it didn't work, so I assumed that the only way you could equip anything was with a touchscreen, which is faster, so it's way better. Because the squares are so tiny, the touchscreen is aggravatingly unresponsive with your finger when it comes to trying to drag items to the equipped square. It works great with a stylus, but it's annoying to have to play a game with a stylus because you have to get it out every time. My least favorite glitch is that you can never press R and A to get an item out if you only have one item you can get out of your bag. Like if there's only one item slot occupied. It forces you to use the touchscreen at the end of all your shipping for the day for at least once. Most importantly, the game has nothing but real-time inventory switching. If you press start, well, it pauses the game, and dims the screen to represent that in the most confusing way possible rather than simply having the word pause there. The entire game is paused, so you can't even scroll through the menu without time ticking by. At least this means you don't feel like having to use the inventory to get stuff out is pace breaking and immersion breaking, because you just look down at the bottom screen. It's less annoying because you can still look at the top screen where your character is anytime you want. I was baffled that the X button did nothing and the B button is still the tool button. There's no excuse for not having switched tools on the X button and instead keeping it to a button combination that was made to compensate for the GBA's lack of buttons. This game doesn't separate the tools and items, so I had to organize them myself. A Wonderful Life had a way to go look at only your tools in the quick inventory by pressing X and the shoulder button, and the game paused every time you went in there. There's no reason you should have to press Y to put away items instead of B, and R instead of L. I love that this game has the Friends of Mineral Town and Wonderful Life villagers as its main cast. I like the Greys and to jerk anymore. The best way to make money is to save in the dig site and dig until you find something and then reload and dig there. It doesn't make any sense how you find these things, so you need a guide to know that.
Why yes, you do need a guide to open the mines. Even the first mine has to be unlocked by you going there at a late time of the day.
What's wrong with only having your choices be Diary 1 and 2 and instantly loading them? I figured out that if I want to save or load perfectly fine every time, I have to tap the file first. Then save and load shouldn't be visible before you've tapped your file.
The emulator doesn't have this problem.
I play a game with this art style and I just miss Friends of Mineral Town where a hot spring was right in front of the mine and on the way back to the farm, and I could spend all day mining. Here, I have to go out of my way to unlock the hot spring, and I can't cook anything yet. You don't start with the kitchen. It takes a while for farming to be more profitable than using the dig site, but you need a guide to even know you can dig stuff up there, let alone profitable stuff that's better than the normal mine stuff. So you're going to be farming when you first play the game, and you plant 9 seeds at a time, so already the game is much better than A Wonderful Life where farming takes 9 times more time. You never know which tool you have equipped unless the bottom screen is set to showing you your bank, but it takes a half second to look at the bottom screen as opposed to just seeing which tool is equipped on the main screen.
I had no time for farming from all the weeding I had to do, and all the hot spring use I had to do.
Even if you put all the branches and rocks in your rucksack, rocks and branches will magically show up on your farm for no reason. Weeds are back, unfortunately. The only way to prevent these things from spawning is planting grass. The blacksmith menu doesn't tell you the price of the tool upgrades. All you know is that you need ores, and you can choose between ores on a list. At least the tool upgrading is as simple as this. You can even downgrade your tools if you ever want to. Until you eventually think to try to tap a certain part of the farm assets menu that tells you how much money you have, which takes you to another screen showing you the tool's experience bars. At first it seems like there is no screen that tells you how close your tool is to being able to be upgraded. So I wasn't encouraged to upgrade them as much, because for all I knew I'd be told it wasn't ready yet. The game would rather spoil that ducks can be in your chicken coop with the farm assets screen, and potpourri telling you about the duck festival. I like that by tapping the watering can on the bag screen, you can see how much water is left. Although you wouldn't think to do that first. I'll talk more about farming later. I like that the game uses Friends of Mineral Town sprites for the forageable things and crops. Finding herbs to ship is pretty simple, because they're almost always on the way. It's weird to walk past streetlights and go down a town path in a top-down Harvest Moon game with graphics like this, and see herbs on empty square parts of land that aren't in my farm, that you'd think you'd be able to farm on. And apparently you can. And you need a guide to know that certain farm plots have different crop growth rates.
One of the most common problems in this game is items don't always stack themselves, which wastes your time. So does stores not being open at 6 AM anymore. I also hate that days off are back. Even if it's just a holiday in Mineral Town, which is not marked on the calendar. The stores are still going to be closed on those days. And it's a change of pace that it doesn't use the same herbs for seasons that Friends of Mineral Town did. When I first played the game, I was in the start of autumn and Flora still had a black heart. Eventually I did some research. You can't even throw weeds back on the ground or people's friendship and affection points drop. Why do you have both friendship and affection points? Isn't that confusing? If you're clearing fields in the town, you have to put everything you pick up in your bag and ship it. This is a big problem for a lot of players, because they don't tell you that you're littering, and getting rid of weeds is a public service to the town. It disappears after you throw it, so why would you think of it as littering? This is why it's so much better than Magical Melody. If you're counted as littering, you're told right away. If you throw away 10 items, and even throwing away weeds on public property counts, the Witch Princess can give you a photo. Apparently, it's shippable, and ups farm degree points each night. Blue herbs are a summer herb, which would have been convenient when you're just starting out, because they restore stamina, and there are no herbs that restore stamina in the spring. It's hard to remember the new herb seasons. This game has branches that respawn every day so you can build a fence or cut them. It turns out you never need to make a fence, so you might end up wasting your time. I wonder if Life didn't have an axe, and did away with the lumber collecting entirely. This game brings it back. I hate that when you chop wood, you end up holding lumber over your head, and you have no idea where to put it, because you have to pay to get a lumber shed built. What kind of Harvest Moon game does that? On the bright side, golden lumber only costs 100,000 G as opposed to being prohibitively expensive like in Friends of Mineral Town. You can actually ship branches and rocks, but it takes forever to pick up and put away all of them every day, and they sell for almost nothing. I don't know why when you try to throw something in the garbage can, it wastes your time with a text box reminding you what a trash can is, and asks you to choose whether the item you want to throw away is a tool, item, or decoration. A huge and inexcusable problem you start running into in the summer is that weeds are still growing in all of the big ground areas. This means that by summer, the ground areas will be almost completely overrun with weeds. So no forgeable items will grow at some point. And there's going to be no branches to pick up for lumber, because you're going to get rid of all the stumps that were there naturally pretty soon, because there's no infinitely respawnable stumps in this game. You will need to be doing the weeding for fields that aren't even your farm, which takes forever. But at first you don't have a way to ship stuff indoors. And it's weird that the mayor technically comes to your farm at 4 PM, when he said it's 5 PM that he picks up stuff he shipped. And if we were going with realism, he wouldn't pick up everything you shipped all at once if you shipped with multiple bins during the day. He'd take some time going from bin to bin. Mary likes even more things in this game. So what's the catch? Aside from the fact that triggering her blue heart event is ridiculous, and that you can only find a Mineral Town character 1 day a week. Well, unfortunately, marrying any Mineral Town character in DS will cause the game to end. Why the hell did they put them in the game then? Assholes. And after the credits finish rolling, you have to resume from your last save spot and act like you never proposed to them. There's no library in this game, so she spends most of every day in Romanus Mansion, so you'd really have to explore everywhere to find her. And I don't have much fondness for Muffy either, because she got annoyed at me for saying I like quiet and cute girls. The other option was cheerful and pretty, but I liked that option too. So why can't you choose both? It looks like only Celia is a good option. A nice girl and a farmer, so she's very compatible with you. But I didn't marry her because she's the boring option. In Celia's Blackheart event, Celia drops a dish and breaks it because you walked up to her and it startles her, and Vesta comes in. It's completely forced that she got startled in the first place. It's not like you're walking around with just socks with no shoes on. You would have been heard long before you walked up to her. My character may have startled her, but being startled doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna drop something you're holding. I've been startled before, and I never dropped anything I was holding. And your options are to tell her the truth, to rat her out, or stay quiet. Because the Harvest Moon Wiki didn't bother telling me which was the correct option up front, and instead said the unclear thing that Vesta says she'd only have been mad if Selly was forced to explain the truth, and didn't tell you if Selly's affection would lower if you ratted her out. I chose to stay quiet because it's basic common sense not to rat out someone when you don't have to. That you actually like. That's actually a good person. That you're trying to woo. What I mean is, it should have said, the right choice is, and then what the right choice is, right away. Celia made the mistake, so she's supposed to take responsibility for her actions. And doing the right thing and siding with Celia got my character reprimanded and giving a sanctimonious guilt trip by Vesta. Out of complete nowhere, even though it was Celia who broke the dish. What kind of a psychotic would yell at my character for not telling her what Celia did wrong? She outright said that she didn't want to see the face of a pitiful excuse for a man. It would make more sense for her to think of her as pitiful for breaking the dish. So if this is her logic, you'd think telling the truth would have her annoyed at Celia for not telling the truth first. She should be glad she was honest. She is if you are. This is officially the most mean-spiritedly written Harvest Moon game in the entire franchise. What is with the localization in this game? It thinks it's so great and smart because it's self-aware, but it makes every character awful. I've never seen a Harvest Moon game before that was so mean and despicable towards the audience, that actually tried to make the audience feel like shit. I quickly gave up on bartering with Van because sometimes he can take forever to offer you as good as the default price again. It's not like it's 50-50 whether it goes up or down. There's actually plenty of different prices he might offer. It's just horribly boring, and it'll already take forever to get married, so there's no hurry in earning money faster by bartering. The necklace lets you use your tool on anything on the map with a touchscreen, which if you're indoors, saves you a lot of time in game. But you use up fatigue points every time you use the tool, so I didn't give it a chance until my last playthrough of DS Cute. Then I realized it was worth having to use the hot spring a little earlier if I got saved a lot of time, and if I only used the necklace right before I already planned to use tools until I needed the hot spring. There's even a Mystrial necklace. I think it's bullshit that you have to buy new necklaces just to use the charged up tool skill on something on the map. I hate that whatever extra song you're playing on the 5th Harvest Sprite channel gets ended if you do a touchscreen minigame or use the teleport stone. You can only unlock the channel by pressing A near the crate around Van when he's at his shop. Another guy, dang it. And you don't simply start out with the fishing rod. You have to go to Gallon's house. On the screen where that's the only house there is. At 12 o'clock. On a Saturday. Make sure you have not got any equipped tools on at the time you go in. That's intuitive, right? You'd think they'd have found it concerning that the playtesters never found a fishing rod. Fishing is luck-based and way too slow. I couldn't get a bite for hours and I had to look up the right time to fish. You have to exclusively fish before 10 AM and after 5 PM. They keep finding new minor ways to fail. Harvest Moon's Game Boy games have you catch a fish almost right away. You have to double tap an item to make sure there's only one of it, because you can give someone every single one of the item you stacked in your rucksack. Not like it counts for more than one gift anyways. Gifting works the normal way, so it's not as slow anymore. The hard events in this game suck. Usually the default option sucks. That's one of the biggest reasons I don't like them. At least the worst Flora has done so far is get paranoid of my character because she thought a strange man was inside the mine. And if you naturally decide to get close to her so she can actually see you, it causes her to beat you up. So if she goes closer to you, then she can see you. But if you go closer to her, she doesn't.
And how do you even know that she can't see you when it's completely brightly lit? I wish it didn't take until day 8 for walking across the bridge to Vesta's farm to unlock Roller, because he means the shop where I can buy the teleport stone, and an accessory that shows me my stamina, fatigue, and exact numbers finally. I love that after unlocking him, he just brings you to the store. I hate that I had to hold and mash A through a long, boring cutscene after unlocking him. It's awesome that there is a way to find out the selling prices of items in this game, so it's too bad it costs money. When you're that early on, you'll look it up anyways. Having to exchange money for medals to buy from him is boring, and it's blatant padding that clearly wasn't necessary. At least it can go up by 10 over and over if you hold left. But of course it does. It's complimenting the game and what it's supposed to do. Doing that would be remembering to praise the game and not forcing you to talk to everyone in town when you start the game. That's a compliment that can be applied to both this game and Friends of Mineral Town. Thank goodness, but that's common sense. I only had to pay 1,000 medals for the teleport stone. It used up 2 fatigue points with every use. But combined with the truth bangle, you're not gonna faint with it. I love that all I have to do to teleport is tap on a part of the map. It's even specific, letting me warp to the north of my farm or to a specific building or to the fields in Celia's farm. Minus the touchscreen requirement, that's how I always imagined that the teleport stone would work in Friends of Mineral Town. You'd only know about getting 2 fatigue points from using the truth bangle. And you have to save before using it, because it might crash the game a few seconds afterwards, on rare occasions. That's the most annoying glitch in the game, but it's worth it. On emulator it never crashed, so this is symbolic. I read the game stable on emulator. This softlock's the closest I got. Don't shelf a held item, or at least not the dog ball, because then pressing A gets you stuck like this. There's convoluted luck-based games of poker and blackjack you can play. I didn't even bother, they aren't telling you why you should play them. You can play the casino games to get medals for free, so it's just encouraging you to lose medals and get a gambling problem. Well, it immediately turned me off that I'd have to use casino medals to get the harvest sprites working for me. I was relieved to learn you could buy the medals for cheap. Paying them casino medals specifically associated with them is more intuitive than Friends of Mineral Town, where you have to look up a guide to know to pay them in flour. I read the helpers rules for the harvest sprites, and they made those rules when they were high. You can only hire one team at a time, which only does one task at a time. Which makes it especially punishing that the second task only begins after the first task is complete. Yeah, because God forbid we have the sprites do a maximum of 3 different tasks on the same day, like Friends of Mineral Town. What's with the song note there? There's nothing good about that. Being able to have your harvesting and watering done automatically was the best thing about Friends of Mineral Town, and that's gone here. What were they thinking? At least you can order the second task in advance to cut the amount of time you'd have to go to the tree by half. It's just especially insulting because if you can order a second task, you wouldn't expect to have to wait for it that long. You have enough land plots that it's not like it's even possible for you to completely automate it anyways, because you can only hire the sprites for one part of the map at a time. Harvest sprites do not work on holidays anymore, so all tasks will be cancelled. At least you get your medals for those days back. The healing sprites are much worse than I expect, and you can't visually tell when they can heal you, because that'd be good game design. It's so easy to forget that you're only allowed to get healed every 30 minutes, which sucks because time doesn't pass in the dig site. And yet I'm expected to heal 1,000 times to unlock the next sprite. You get the horse after shipping 1,000 items. Apparently. That's convoluted. You need to play the brushing minigame for sprites too. It's immersion breaking that the animals only look dirty when you go into the brushing minigame. And they look dirty every day you do the minigame. Well, it would be even worse if the game always guilted you by always having them look dirty. And no matter how much you put soap suds on the animal won't get any cleaner until you choose to end the minigame. I like that sometimes you can get it especially soapy, and you get more points that way. And it's good that you can choose to end the minigame whenever you want. I really hate that the soap suds disappear from the spot you put them on after a while, making everything you're doing feel pointless because it's only temporary and you can't have the animal realistically completely covered in soap.
I love that you run through the horse and get off through him. But this horse still has the problem where it runs all over the place uncontrollably, barely staying at your side so that you aren't motivated to use him. And it's especially a problem when the horse doesn't like you enough to come over to you when you whistle. I hate that if he's off screen, which he is usually, he won't respond to the whistle, which kind of defeats the purpose of it. If it teleported here, the whistle could be really helpful. I hate that the horse doesn't always come over when I whistle. But it takes so much time to catch up to the horse that it's probably faster to forge without it. It's still faster to use the teleport stone. It seems like I'm gonna like this game. I needed to look it up online to find out that the only way you can do anything about the stamina and fatigue system, where you start out with 100 stamina points and can do nothing to permanently increase it, is that you have to know to look on the top floor of the inn on certain days like the 3rd of the month, and buy a Kappa hat from Van. Van doesn't even sell the green Kappa hat. The red one's useless by comparison. The green Kappa hat effectively gives you immunity to your character fainting. It's found as a cursed tool dug up in the 3rd mine on a certain floor. And the 3rd mine is only unlocked if you get to the bottom of the 2nd mine, which would require you to spend the money making chocolate cake, or spend it on body dressers.